Well, thank you very much for joining us today. I know most of you are on Zoom. So today we have the pleasure of welcoming Dr. Kim Nimon, a professor of human resource development at the University of Texas at Tyler. She is also the director of the Research Design and Data Analysis Lab. Dr. Nimon is a widely recognized scholar whose work spans employee engagement, research design, and advanced analytical methodologies. She has served as investigator or evaluator on 8 National Science Foundation grants, published in top-tier peer-reviewed journals, and delivered over 100 presentations at national conferences. Her contribution to the field have earned her both the Early Career Scholar Award and the Outstanding Human Resource Development Scholar Award from the Academy of Human Resource Development. And she has consistently been ranked among the top 2% of scientists worldwide in her capacity. So today, Dr. Nimon will share how AI-assisted text extraction and topic modeling can complement traditional literature review methods in HRD research. So join us in welcoming Dr. Nimon.
Thank you for having me. Well, I just want to kind of start this and just say this is really going to be a conversation, and I'm going to be sharing some of the work that I'm doing at UT Tyler with my students and with some of our research. And I want to give nod to Dr. Yoon, who is not able to be with us today, but I, for a long time, spent most of my time analyzing numbers. And I would tell clients very happily, if it's not a 1 or a 0, I don't do it, which meant that I didn't analyze text data. And I was missing out on a lot of opportunities. I would be saying I was leaving money on the table, especially as it related to consulting, because most of the data that we have available to us for research and teaching is not structured, it's not 1s and 0s. And so I got to know Dr. Yoon over many, many years, and he came out to speak to us at UT Tyler, and he shared different versions of this slide that's behind me. And you'll see in the kind of this lower corner here, there are a lot of books about practical text analysis. And so one of my colleagues, Dr. Yu, and I, when he came to UT Tyler, we decided we were going to start doing some book clubs. And we did book club, and we started with one of the books on text analysis. And we just started learning how to do that. And so that's what I'm going to talk to you about, a couple of these different projects that we've been working on. One of the things that I do at UT Tyler is I teach actually in 2 different specializations. They're both related to HRD, but one has a specialization in advanced research where students take, univariate statistics, multivariate, and structural equational modeling, plus a whole lot more. And the other specialization is in higher education leadership. Those students don't take as much statistics. So I've got to find a new way to let them use some of the advanced statistical concepts, but without giving them the opportunity to learn everything that the other students teach. So this is my working progress about doing that. Has anybody here done a systematic literature review? You've done that, yeah? Did you find it a fun process, an easy process, a little painful?
I think it's the worst kind of research that unless I have to, I wouldn't do it again.
Yeah, I am totally with you. I felt that way. I did a meta-analysis when I was at UNT, and I was like, well, I don't think I will ever do that way again. And so I have been searching on looking for automated ways to do systematic literature reviews, whether they are textual or whether they are sucking effect sizes out of articles. And what I've got our students doing in this higher ed leadership specialization, this is their 2nd semester. So they learn what we have a class called discipline inquiry. So they understand kind of the idea of research, and what they're doing this semester is they're doing a literature review. Well, we've all said, but it's a painful process. So they are looking to see, well, what's that intersection between HRD, human resource development, and higher education leadership? And so we're going to databases like Web of Science, databases like Scopus, and we're downloading tons and tons and tons of abstracts. And then they're going through that process of looking at those and saying, okay, does this article look like what we're interested in? Is it empirical research? Is it about HRD? Is it about higher education? Is it about employees in higher education? And then what they've got to do is then synthesize that information. Well, the traditional way of doing that would be to go look at all those abstracts, come up with codes, identify the codes to the abstracts, and it'd be a very laborious process. We have in this data set over 1,000 articles that we need to be analyzing. And that's not going to happen in a 15-week semester, no matter how much time they put into that. It's just not going to happen. So I wanted to see if we could go ahead and use technology to help do this. So this tool that I've called Matter, and ChatGPT always helps me in my names because I'm not very good at naming anything. Our company's called Nimon Consulting, so that says a lot. But Matter, meta-analysis, metadata analysis for topic trends and exploration or research. It's nice because it has this kind of cutesy acronym. But what I wanted to show you is this application that I built goes along with this scoping review protocol. And this is what the students are doing this semester, is they are implementing this scoping protocol. And it's all pre-registered on OSF. And make this a little bit bigger. And what I want to show you here, you see this okay, is this is what we're looking for. We were looking for articles about HRD. And we also included, we know that somebody might not call something HRD. So we said, okay, well, maybe it's talent development or organizational development or career development. And it also had to be a review. So what we're really doing is we're looking also at higher education. And we are reviewing those systematic literature reviews. So it's somewhat of it's a scoping review from the perspective of, we're going to go look and see, oh, sorry, I said that wrong. We have another article like that. We are looking at original research. So we're looking at original research, and we've got it both in the Web of Science and the Scopus. So you can see that the students had to go look through 9,000 abstracts. Now they're in the process now of pulling the full text and then looking at the full text to make sure those articles do what they think they're really doing. And I think we're going to end up with about 1,000 different abstracts that we then have to synthesize. And we just had spring break like you did. This end of the semester is looming. So we've got to kind of quickly wrap this up. And that's what we're trying to do in this. So let me get back to where I was. Oops. Talked too much and I got disconnected from my own application. So that's what this is based on. Now, what we're doing is something that's pretty straightforward. Some of my math colleagues here will know that there are certainly many more opportunities to do this. But what this application is doing is using LDA to basically take all of the information, all of this, and going to take all those research abstracts. We're going to treat that as bag of words. And what we're going to try to do is then see what topics underlie those bag of words. And what we're going to get is we're going to get probability that that particular abstract belongs to a topic. And then we're going to get information about the words. And from that, we can start getting an idea of the same thing that we might get if we did this by hand, but that might be a little hard to do with 1,000. So if you're looking at this graphical model, you see that theta is a topic proportion vector, and beta is a word distribution for a topic K. Z is that latent topic assignment for word N in document D. And then our alpha is our prior on the topic document proportions. Now, one of the things that this application has to do is get the data clean, because the data comes in pretty clean from Web of Science, but still not perfect. There are, even though we limited our search to English documents, there are still some words that come in with some special characters that are a little bit hard to interpret, so we kind of clean that out. But we also have to filter out stop words. That's a really big thing in any type of text analysis, is what kind of words. Now, depending on what you're doing, if you're doing some other techniques like BERT or SBERT, you want those stop words in there because those stop words are going to help you. But in this very simple approach of topic modeling, we're going to take those stop words out. Otherwise, they're going to really kind of create noise in our area. And we also have the opportunity to either stem or lemmatize. And then that, again, that can help you or hurt you. And after that process is complete, then we create a document term matrix. And that's simply for each document we have in there, we have the words that are left over, and then ones or zeros or twos or zeros for however many times that document is, how many times that word is in that document. And that DTM or document term matrix is what's going to be analyzed through the LDA process. So what I want to show you, I've gone ahead and analyzed this just for the purposes of having a demo that was all built in. These are actually 30 different abstracts. Now 30 is not a great number. I probably wouldn't really be doing LDA on 30 abstracts. We're going to have closer to 1,000, but just it's a little easier to kind of look through 30 for the purposes of demonstration. But you can see here are the abstracts that were analyzed. And then you see that the topic modeling is indicating that the highest probability is associated with topic 3 because 0.38 is greater than the other numbers. And so that is the maximum topic associated with this abstract. And then I've given some other information here from the metadata that this relates to this particular article. We scroll down here and move over. You can also see the keywords, the year. If you want to go ahead and link to the article, you can link to the article. And we think this is going to be helpful for the students because what they're going to have to do after they get this running is they're going to have to decide, well, does this topic architecture make sense? And then they're going to have to name the topics. For those of us that are pretty comfortable doing factor analysis, this is akin to naming your factor. Sometimes we know what the factor is if we're doing something a priori, that I'm doing a particular analysis and I think these items are supposed to hang together. But sometimes we're doing something like principal components analysis and we don't know what they are. And so this is like that. We've got to go ahead and name that. So this metadata just kind of gives us the information. Now, what's typically presented in LDA are the top 50 words. And so in our particular data set, which again is very, very small, just for purposes of demonstration, you see leadership and development are right up top. Well, that kind of makes sense. We're looking at higher education and we're looking at human resource development. So it doesn't surprise me that we're seeing development and leadership come up top. We're also seeing student, university, program. I look at these words because these give me an idea. I kind of check them to make sure I don't have any stop words that maybe I need to continue to get rid of. So if I saw the or and or something, sometimes we put coded things in there. We might want to get rid of those. But all these words look pretty good to me. I think I still keep those. Now, the biggest trick, I think, the hardest part, well, there's two hard parts. The first hard part is picking the number of topics. And there's many, many, many different ways to do this. One way that it's pretty simple is the Cowan, I'm not saying Cowan's name correctly, I don't know, 2009, and just look for the lower value. Now, if this lower value and then another one next to it was a little bit higher, but was more topics, I'd probably still pick the lower one. And so the software actually does that. It looks to see if the delta is not a whole lot different than 0.005, then I'm still going to go ahead and pick that one that has fewer topics. Fewer topics are a little bit easier to interpret than a whole bunch of topics. Now, we'll talk more. I think I skipped over that in the primer, but there are many different methods. And I think you've got another participant coming in later to talk about topic modeling. This is probably the simplest technique to do topic modeling. There are certainly more sophisticated techniques. What is nice about this particular technique is it's kind of easy to use the statistics to see what the number of topics are. But what I might get in some of my topics, I might get a topic that's not as interpretable. Then if I did structural topic modeling, then I can kind of look at the relationship between the efficacy of that topic and the uniqueness of that topic, or the uniqueness of the words in that topic. And so sometimes I get more interpretable solutions in that. So we may go ahead and analyze this both ways and to see, is that topic structure stable across different analytic methods of doing that? But again, for this, we're just going to stay with LDA. So what we have in this next tab is just basic descriptive statistics. Looking at the relationships, you see there's a strong relationship. When you do this with a larger data set, you don't see as strong relationships, but you see a pretty strong relationships for these topics. You can see the means and standard deviations are pretty similar. So we're seeing about equal distribution was what you'd expect. And we're seeing that topic 3 is more prevalent for being the maximum topic, if I just look at the maximum topic probability. So that just kind of gives us a little bit of information. Then we can look, and this is probably a really helpful tool for us, is to go look at the 3 different topics. What are the top 15 words in those 3 topics? Now you see leadership or leader is prevalent across all of it. Maybe that's a word we should take out, but I think this is really more related to our sample. I think when we have our full data set in there, that's not going to come up that way. But you can, in your own mind, think, what do you think maybe these topics can be? And think about that a little bit. I'll also look at the word clusters or the word clouds, and that might help us. So for each of these topics, we can look at the top 50 words. So there's something about, again, remember this is only 30 abstracts or something, Tennessee seems to be coming up for some reason. We can also change that. Sometimes it's helpful to look at more because some of those common words like leadership are kind of not clouding our general, but they're screaming at us so much. Sometimes it's helpful to see, well, what are some of those other words that are in here? So this is topic 1. Here's topic 2. Again, we're seeing that leadership development still come across pretty closely. In topic 3, so just stay on topic 3. Is there anything here you see in topic 3 that you didn't see in the other topics?
University.
Yeah. I see woman, right? You see military. We got some mentoring in here. So here's our leadership development. And see, here's gender again. I was picking on women before. The national survey. So our task is, we may not get to it today, but our task is going to be, we need to name these topics. So we get to that place of naming those topics. And I don't know, that's kind of hard. We can maybe call this, I don't know. I like to keep small names because we're going to have to put this in a table. And so maybe this one had more gender issues. And what did you say, Wallet, about the third one?
University.
Yeah. University. The acronym is HEIS. So I just put HEIS. Yeah. So now I can apply that. And so now it's a little bit easier for me to kind of think about these things and look at them. So now what you can do is now I can say, all right, let me go look at the articles that have the highest probability. And maybe that's going to help me figure out my naming. So I can go ahead and look at that abstract and see what that's about. And so this is those Tennessee organizations we're talking about before. There's another one. This is hospital and health systems. Did this one talk about hospital and health systems? No, it's about organizations in Tennessee. But you can see how you can use this information to then kind of customize or refine what your topics are. And so you can do that for each of these different things. This seems to be a lot more about school leadership development. But interesting, Africa is popping up here a couple different times. And then our last one, HEIS. We did leadership development again about leadership. We talked before about gender. We've seen the influence of gender, peer review. So I think as we get real data in here, this is going to be this will be a nice tool to help us do that. I've also put some plots together so that we can look to see, is there a difference in how this is changing over time? This is, you can look at it either with a table or a plot. And interestingly, if I look at this across what 5-year boundaries, which might be too small given our sample size, we went all the way back down to 1964 in our protocol, because 1964 was the first year that HRD was developed or was defined as a term. So we went from the beginning of the time that HRD was defined as a term all the way to present time. But you can change that by changing the time frame here to maybe 10 years and change. We can look at that plot again. It just got refreshed. And we're seeing, of course, that most of the research was done in this last decade, not so much before then. So even though our protocol says we went back to time, if this stays true as we have the whole data set, we may choose to only analyze maybe the last 10 years if those first set of years were somewhat sparse, or maybe we'll kind of merge those in. So questions on that app? Does that feel like something that you think might be helpful to you if you did a systematic literature review?
Yeah, I think so. In the workshop series we're doing, so the third and the fourth workshops will be, first one is supervised classification, and then LDA at the end. This makes the LDA process really easier, instead of just coding everything yourself and dealing with coding bugs and problems. This makes it easier and easy to get visuals, and you can manipulate them easily.
Yeah.
I think this is really helpful for especially students that don't code that much or are scared of coding.
Agreed. One of the things I want to change or add, because this is like projects in your garage that are never finished. I have lots of these projects. Is I want to add an override. So right now this code picks the smallest, the smallest WAN value based on number of topics. What I want to do is let the user play with that. So in this case, I don't think it's going to be a whole lot interesting if we looked at 2, but add that so that user can play around with that and see. We can do all this same. This is all stuff we've done in R, and you get tons and tons and tons of different files. But it's hard to manage all those files to Wallace's point. Having it all in one place and be able to flip back and forth, I think is a useful process. And what I'm optimistically excited or cautiously excited about is I think it gives the opportunity for really brand new students to be playing around with something that otherwise they would get stuck in all the issues with syntax and a statistical program. I want to show you just a couple other things. All this information plus others can be downloaded. So all this information could be downloaded for further analysis. The tables and the figures can be downloaded, so you put those in the article. And then if you're good at R, you can download this R workspace. And then if you don't like how this particular figure was run, you want to create your own version, maybe you want a color version of it, you could go ahead and customize that. All right, I'm going to move on now to another project that relates. If we have time, I'll show you how it relates. So, and this extract demo was something that I was going to present at the Academy of Human Resource Development. This is something that Dr. Yu and I worked on. And in this case, this application was inspired from this umbrella review protocol we have. And what we're doing in this umbrella review is we're looking to see, all right, let's look at all the systematic literature reviews that have been done related to artificial intelligence and human resource development. And then we have specific questions that we want to know about that data that then we're going to publish. And we publish up this protocol on PLOS1. And I don't think we realized how many articles there were going to be that came from our search. It was a lot. After we got done, I don't even remember how many tens of thousands of abstracts we looked at. But after we screened all those abstracts, we ended up with 900 full text articles that we then needed to pull information from. So we had a protocol, we had specific things that we're looking for, like how did the researchers define artificial intelligence? And we went pretty far back. So what we think of artificial intelligence today is not what somebody thought about what artificial intelligence was in 2005. We wanted to know what were the barriers to using artificial intelligence in HRD. How are people using artificial intelligence in HRD? So I had a whole set of questions. So we started this process after we had downloaded the 900 articles, and we use Rayon as if you see like R-, that's because we downloaded everything to Rayon. And that was our tool, our collaborative tool for reviewing all the abstracts. So we started with the first table or the first article using our traditional way of using Excel to capture all the information per article. And you read the article and then you type the information in, or maybe you copy it and then you paste it. And after I did like 1 or 2 of those, I called my colleagues saying, go, can I go? I'm not doing this 900 more times. So built an application to use generative AI to help us with that. So that's what this app's going. And this app generates data that can be analyzed in the topic modeling app. Same, you don't have to analyze abstracts. If you want to analyze whatever you've collected, it can analyze any data. It doesn't care that it's an abstract. All right, now I'm going to find myself back here. Hold on. What I did in this app is I had the 900 articles. First thing I had to do is take all those PDFs and convert them to text. And clean up the text. And once that was done, there is an extraction type called customer canned. And so in the canned extraction, and I've done this already, I don't want to, it takes a bit, even with, this is a small data set as well, just 30 articles. It goes through, and by article, it uses generative AI. In this particular case, we use GPT 4.1. And we wrote a prompt and it captured all the information. And what we asked generative AI to do, or GPT 4.1, is we gave it prompts. And I'll show you the prompt here in a little bit. We'd say, just give me the quotes. Don't synthesize it, because we were too concerned that in AI's opportunity to synthesize, it could hallucinate, and we don't want to go through all that. Just give me the quotes. What I wanted it to do was the same thing that I was doing, right? I was reading our protocol. Okay, I want to get the limitations. I want to get what people are doing for AI in HRD. And I want to just capture that text. I want to plunk it in that Excel, and then we can analyze that. That's what I wanted generative AI to do. And generative AI is not like me. It doesn't get tired. It doesn't start hearing elevator music. It doesn't start, seeing the cat or all the things that happen to me as a person. It doesn't get tired. So I personally think it does a better job than I would do. So what I've done prior, before I came here, is I went ahead and ran it. And so I have information where AI could find it. And I told AI, look, if you can't find it, just say NOx, nothing there. And I don't remember NOx. That was my acronym for that. And we also gave it, I think you can see, we had either include a gold standard or not. So we gave AI an example. We gave AI an example. And we found that AI did a better job when we gave it an example than we didn't, but we have that as an option. We also give it and what I'm going to show you the workflow here is after AI has extracted all that information, we still want the researcher involved in the process. We're not going to believe that this is all correct or all sufficient. So what we do then as humans is we go through the process and approve each of the elements in here. And if we don't approve it, then we either edit it or we can create another prompt, a custom prompt, and ask generative AI, all right, go look at this specific thing. Like because I'm going to have to kind of be scanning the article as well, but this saves me a lot of time in that process. And we have the article here. It's already built in, so I can go look at the article very quickly. I can compare it to what I have. I've got two monitors, so when I'm doing this, I've got a monitor with the PDF that has that, and then I've got the monitor with the approved tab, so I'm kind of going back and forth and looking at that. And things it does pretty well. It does very well. We wanted to know, what did the initial search find? Remember, we're looking only at systematic literature reviews. And it does that super fine. We also wanted to know, okay, at the end, so you do a search, and then at the end, how many did you find? And it does that pretty reliably as well. Then we started asking it some for other things. Okay, what was the final? So the final, this was an example of the final response. What was the search time? So what was the time period that they do their search? What did they basically find? Where did they do their search? What was the search string? These are all, some of these things were not in our protocol, but there are things that we wanted to capture as we're doing to inform our own research if we're doing another umbrella review. We wanted to know what type of analyses were done. We wanted to know what their research questions were. We wanted to know how they defined AI. We wanted to know what HRD functions were used for AI. We wanted to know what the author saw as the benefits of AI. We wanted to know what made it easier for an organization to adopt AI. We wanted to know what were the obstacles. We wanted to know what the author thought about ideas for future research. And we wanted to know about how do they define AI, because that certainly changes over time. And then oftentimes there was some type of figure that showed the methodology. And so we asked AI to give it that information as well. So you as a user, and so this was set up, there are multiple people on this team. So multiple people would go through this process and review this. And so you could just say, you know what, after reading this, that document isn't right. We thought it was a systematic literature review, but when we look at this article, we find it's not. So we're just going to mark that for exclusion. And if I said yes to that and said approved, see, I'm going to get a little warning. And it said, oh, I have to approve the title and note first in order to do that. All right, so the reason why we have approved the title is we wanted to make sure that there's a connection. So it was a manual process to name the files. So we named the files the same as our rayon key, but we didn't trust that that was right. So we want the human to make sure, oh, is this the right article? So it's called Intelligent Human Resources for the Adoption of Artificial Intelligence. So let me go look at that PDF. And is that the same article? Yes, so that's good. So I can go ahead and approve that title. Go back to my approve. And so I can mark that for approval. Now, because I'm going to mark that for exclusion, then I would put a note here. The reason I mark this for exclusion is XYZ, so that we can remember this, so we can report that. So I can go ahead and approve that note. And now I can approve that marked field. And now that article is at the very bottom of my list with a little star. So it tells me where I've gone. Now, let's say that I want to generate a document prompt. Let's just say I think AI, well, let's just do this. Let's do, let's say approve everything here. And obviously I would be taking hopefully a little bit more time if I was doing this for real. Actually looking at the article at the same time. And so I'm not approving these. So I say, all right, I want to generate a new prompt. So this is what the original prompt was. This original prompt said, all right, how many articles did the authors initially find in their systematic literature review? We're always telling it to provide direct quotes. Trying to be very careful. And what search string did the authors use? And so we have that information. But I could ask it something else. So remember before it was done with the gold standard. Well, let me run it without the gold standard and I could generate that document prompt. And so here's the prompt that comes from that. And it's much shorter than if I did have the gold standard. Here, if I include the gold standard, got a bad API key. Let's go look at that document prompt. Nope. Well, I'm sorry, I can't show that to you. But we can go through that process. We could get information and then continue that process. Every time we do that as a user, we keep track and we keep track of how many times we have asked AI to do this process. We keep track of how many tokens we give to AI, how many tokens come back, because there's a cost associated with that, and we keep track of those costs with that. So we have kept in here the abstract and the PDF, as I showed you before. This gives us the information of the initial extraction that was done. This FID means that in that process of running through all the articles and finding that information, we, again, don't trust that there couldn't be some error in that process. So part of the process that we do is we go through all the articles, we ask AI to give us the information, and remember, we wanted quotes. We then go back into that document that we fed AI, and we look for that same search string that AI gave us. So the concern about hallucination or AI just making up its own words, then if it said FID means found in the document. We don't have to be worried about that because it found those exact same words. Sometimes, and every time we found it where we didn't find it, it's because the data, as we go from a PDF to a document, the data is messy. The data is very messy. Think about articles. They have footers, they have headers, and you've got to strip out all that information because we're looking at continuous data. Like it could say intelligent human resources, then the footer, then the header for the adoption. And so that code that goes through to check it has to handle all that. That code's not perfect. That code's not perfect. So sometimes that code shows, I'm not finding that exactly. So the human has to go look and make sure that's there. And we mark that as a question mark. I scroll down here. See if so you see reviewer should check. And let's see if I can. Oh, let me show you this too. That ... What we said, we told AI, don't worry about looking for quotes just in one place. Maybe you're going to find multiple sentences. They could be throughout the document. Let me go back to this prompt. We also give information about location. And so in our data file that kind of informs that, we say whether some things should only be in a method section or a result section to help kind of guide that process. So here, as you see, this is our note file, so it's just initialized to note. But you see, in this case, it's pretty clean. It's finding everything, but it's not always that way. So sometimes a user has to go through the question marks and validate that information is in there. Sometimes the generative AI says there's nothing there, and so the user again has to go through there to see if anything is in there. So this shows that initial extraction that was done before the reviewer got involved. This shows what the current extraction is. This is keeping track of the number of times that AI has been involved, how much it cost, and what the tokens were going up and the tokens going back down. Now, we analyzed 900 different articles. How much do you think it cost in OpenAI fees to do that? 900 articles, and you can see we asked it many different things. I don't know, it'd be about 15 different things. What do you think that cost? What's a lot? You're a grad student.
Yeah, we're grad student, everything in the lab.
Yeah.
4.1, I'm not sure.
$4.1?
No, 4.1, GPT 4.1, I don't know how much.
Oh, cost $50.
50? Oh.
That's not bad. I'd spend $50. I mean, if I was a grad student, I'd donate some blood to make that happen, to give me a good start. I mean, right? I mean, that's what we're doing as grad students, right? So, because I was nervous about that. I thought, oh, this is going to be really, really expensive. And so we played around with different models. You know, there's at the time, and you know, there's now a whole different series now. But we were originally going to use 4.0-mini because it's a whole lot cheaper. Because I was really nervous about it. But the number of tokens that are going back and forth it's not too bad. So I was pretty impressed that it only cost us $50. That wasn't bad at all. So this last tab gives that final information about the reviewer approved extraction and then the downloads. So once this file's done, once you've gone through the process and you've approved everything, then all those fields that we had information on can then be topic analyzed. Just like we analyze the abstracts, now we can go analyze all these different fields to answer our research questions. So that's how those two applications relate to each other. All right, hit me. Tell me what you like, what you don't like.
Usually when I see systematic review with machine learning, they usually use some supervised classification algorithm to classify abstracts, whether to include or exclude.
Yeah.
From your experience, do you think the LDA approach is better than training the model on classifying, like using logistic function or something like that?
So with this data, we have analyzed it with structural topic modeling, but we're not, just because that was kind of my tool of choice for topic modeling, but we don't really have any metadata. Like in other cases, we've analyzed other data where we had, okay, we think that topic might vary based on time, or it might vary based on the type of function that the person had in the organization, or tons of metadata. In this case, where we just have data, really the only thing that we could be analyzing would be time. And I think that's valid. I think when we go and answer our question about what is AI, I think that makes sense. I think that makes sense. And maybe all of it makes sense. So when we go finish this, when we actually have finished this whole approval process, the structural topic we've done so far doesn't include time. I think we do want to include time, but I also want to look at it from the LDA perspective. When we looked at it from the structural topic modeling case, it's been hard for us to really get comfortable with the number of topics. It's been hard. Maybe when I add time in, that will make it easier, but I want to see it from a simpler perspective with the LDA to see what that's going to show.
chat.
But what do you think about using generative AI? I'm a little nervous what the reviewers are going to think, right? Even though I think we've used it in a very responsible way, we've asked it. We have the human still in the process. We have the human. I mean, the code's validating that it's really quotes. We have the human in the process. I mean, do you feel like that's cheating?
I think it's working smart.
Working smart, yeah. I think when you have close to 1,000 articles, I don't really know what the choices are. I personally would like to see all this move so I can have an idea. Hey, I wonder how AI has been used in HR. I want to limit it to systematic literature reviews and pop a button and get the human out of the loop. And maybe it's not perfect, but it gives me a general idea of what's going on. So the next thing, the thing that we laboriously did is we reviewed all the abstracts, and even in that other project, a team of people reviewed all the abstracts. I'm pretty sure AI can do that pretty well as well. We just haven't put that in here yet. But once we put AI in the loop of figuring out what the abstracts are, then the only manual process is for this kind of project is finding the PDFs and just putting them in a folder, tying them to the metadata. That's not bad. And I'm sure there's some tool that can help us do that as well. That is, I just got an email from a student that, finding the articles. Once you go to Web of Science and Scopus, finding all the articles is a whole nother thing. You go through the interlibrary loan. If I got 200 articles, I'm still trying to find through interlibrary loan. That part is still gonna be there. But that's something you can assign to somebody to do, run it through the tool, and at least get a good starting point, right? That then you can dig deeper on. That's my sense. Yeah, I'm curious. Do you feel like this is ethical? Do you feel like are there other things we could do to feel like this is more ethical? I was really surprised that I didn't find, like my own research. I use ChatGPT just kind of like I used to use Google, and ChatGPT sometimes sends me down some crazy land. I mean, just crazy land. It's interesting though, ChatGPT told me about something, and then it was something that I'd actually published on that I'd forgotten about. I was like, oh, okay, so that was helpful. But sometimes sends me down really crazy paths. But I didn't find that. I didn't find craziness in any of the data that came in this process.
Well, waiting for her answer. So in terms of the
Yeah.
LDA,
Yeah.
Did you notice every time you run it, you get a different result, or it's?
No, because I've got seeds. I said seeds, yeah.
Because from my experience, usually with LDA, every time you run it, you get a different topics, and usually you'll have to refine it.
But I'm curious, and anybody that's on Zoom or anyone else, if you think this is a useful tool, I think this is ethically by models and train. Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Yeah, we're trying to be really transparent about our models and our prompts. Are there other things that, because right now we're using this as internal tools. This is just stuff that we're using in our research teams. Is this something that anyone thinks would this be beneficial for someone to use for their own work? Because we're trying to decide, is this worth publishing as a standalone? We're using it internally, but is this worth publishing for somebody else to take from?
I think for us, social science, we do a lot of reviews. I think it's beneficial for us. I think it, as the comment said, it closes the gap, because a lot of students or even faculty in social science, they don't code.
Yeah.
So if somebody knows how to code, they'll be at advantage. But an app like this would close that gap. So even someone who cannot code in Python can still use these methods to streamline their process.
Yeah, and that's what Hisa was saying, right?
Yeah.
That closes that gap.
Exactly.
Yeah. This is actually all written in R.
Oh.
I write a little in Python, but I spent so much time in R, it's hard for me to go back and forth. So if I do need to do something in Python, I use reticulate, and then I go back and forth. So we see someone saying it's helpful not only for academic paper, but for doctoral dissertation stage, as requires extensive literature review. Yeah. I'm curious if we get, you know, and if technology gets to that stage that we feel comfortable with it. You know, we struggle a lot with the research to practice boundary, and the fact that it takes us forever to do a meta-analysis, it takes us forever to do a systematic literature review. If we can shorten that time period, you know, if you go to the veterinarian sometimes gives you your dog a certain shot, sometimes it don't, and because it's based on some meta-analysis they've read. But oftentimes those meta-analyses take years to write, and the information is old going in. Will we as academicians be viewed better, or maybe our work would be used more if people could do things like this more quickly? That's what's in my head process, is how can we make use of our research quicker? Okay, that's all I have today, folks.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.